All right, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Your Dependable Partner. Um, this week, we really have something very interesting that everybody needs to know about, but I'm afraid very few do. So pay attention. This is the Smooth Move podcast brought to you by Your Dependable Partner. I'm Brian Sachs with my partner, Joelle Sagner, and our special guest today. You may have seen her on previous episodes. Uh, Jane, welcome. And this is Jane Sneill Simpson. And what we're going to talk about today is something called an ADU. And you might be saying, what the heck is an ADU? Well, folks, we're experiencing, this isn't a news flash, I don't think. There is a housing affordability issue in the United States. So if that's news to you, consider this a news flash, but I don't think it is. And what we're seeing is something really interesting occurring. We're seeing generations move back in together. And, I grew up in Baltimore and I grew up in a household where my grandparents lived in one room, I lived in a room, and my parents lived in another room. And yeah, nobody had much privacy, I would say. So, an ADU, and we're going to find out what an ADU is really from one of the experts in the country on ADU. So, Jane, tell us what's an ADU and why do people need to know about it?
Well, first of all, you've actually already introduced me, but Jane Snell Simpson from JS1 Construction. We're also called the lifestyle contractor. I'm located in Florida. I've been a general contractor for 22 years now and specialize in these ADUs. So we design and build mostly modular backyard guest houses that are the tech name for them is the ADU, and ADU stands for Accessible Dwelling Unit. Um, Sometimes you'll hear them called casitas. The cutest name I've ever heard of them being called is Granny Flats. I absolutely love that name. Mother-in-law suite, in the backyard. They have a lot of different names. For families who want a smart aging in place solution, that's the primary reason why we do it. Instead of moving a parent to a facility and having that be part of their plan, or they really, don't probably most people I know don't want that to be their plan, but that's somehow how it ends up. We create this small, fully equipped home in the backyard so that they can live independently and never be far from help. That's the purpose.
Well, I think what's truly wonderful about this, and it shouldn't go unmentioned, is that you're all living together, but not really. Granny has, or Gramps has his or her privacy in their flat, right? They can come and go as they please. They can sleep when they want, wake up when they want, uninterrupted. And yet you're close enough where you're literally steps away. So you have privacy without the worry, is what I call it. And um, Joel and I are both real estate agents, and I'm a mortgage broker as well, mortgage banker to be accurate. But we're starting to see, Jane, lots of folks looking into this. And these units actually, number one, add value to the property. And when they're there, we can actually even include on the mortgage side the rental income if there is any. Now I don't know if you're going to charge Granny or Gramps rent, but if you did, we could count that income in qualifying. I don't know if you knew that, or it's not very common out there in terms of people who are aware of that. But what are some of the pros and cons from your perspective of putting in, and now we all know what an ADU is. What are some of the pros and what do you think some of the cons might be?
So the pros, you've already hit on them. I think the biggest ones is keeping families together. I think that's huge, because of all the benefits that come with that. Um, Primarily, I see it for the person with the ADU is lucky enough to get one. Um, Reducing the stress of thinking of what their next thing have to be, if they're even going to be going to a facility or not. That kind of takes it off the table when you're able to do something like this. Studies have been shown that you thrive. Seniors thrive when they're able to be around family, and the loneliness aspect is kind of taken away when you have some of them have grandkids that live in the main house, and they're able to keep close to them. If you really think about it, the way most families work, you're completely apart. If not if you're lucky enough to be in the same city, you're in different homes, and there's different schedules going, which you don't get to see your grandkids probably as often as you'd like. Now, if they're just right there in the same yard, you get to see them every day and even participate in the activities, daily activities that happen. So that's always a plus. But I talked about reducing the stress of daily living. There's a lot of things that you no longer have to worry about. You kind of deal with it as a family and it becomes easier. But there's also the cost of senior living facilities that, makes it a non-issue, a non-discussion. You don't even talk about it because the costs are astronomical, in most cases for a decent facility. I think the last time I looked at that, you guys may know these numbers better than me because you deal with facilities on a regular basis, Joelle and Brian, but I would say around 5 or 6,000 is somewhere around the.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Forty-five
Okay.
hundred is I think a national median statistic,
Okay.
but 5, 6 grand for sure. Yep.
Yeah. For a
Plus,
decent.
the homeowner, they're probably not going to charge their relatives rent, but when their relatives unfortunately pass, then they can use it as a rental property.
Right. It's like it just keeps on giving,
Hmm.
as far as I can see. It's an investment, really, in your future. Um, it lets, Brian also said something about the privacy. They still can come and go as they please, if as they please, if they are active and have an active schedule of going out and meeting with their friends or having coffee, or going to the library and still being that they can still do those things,
Hmm.
because they're
They
in their
also
own
can have
home
friends
still.
over. They can have
Right.
friends over
They can have
without,
friends. Right.
and all sorts of friends with their own privacy, in their own
Right.
door shut, without having to go through a house. And when my grandparents had people over, there was a small house. It was an 1,800 square foot house. So, 1,500 square foot house. So everybody got to meet the friends.
Right.
Mhm.
And when I would bring friends over, unfortunately, my parents and grandparents got to meet them too. So it was, you know, it, to me, it's just like a wonderful, wonderful way to enhance the value of your home and enhance the quality of the family life.
It's also allowing the parent to continue to have their independence. A lot of times it's not just affordability about going into, oh, I'm sorry, about going into some of these, communities, like senior living communities. It's they think they're losing their independence by going to them. And by having an ADU, they still have their independence. It's just another house they're moving to.
Exactly. Just, close proximity
Right.
provides the best of both worlds. And one other thing I will say about the adult children, they get their peace of mind because they know that mom or dad is safe.
Hmm.
That's a big part of the conversation that I usually, when I speak to them, is they're worried and concerned, and a lot of them don't even live close by. But
Right.
if you can arrange something where they're living in the main house, that's one option, and the parents living in the ADU, But also, even if that's not able to happen, you can rent out the main house. I mean, I'm sure you guys have thought of that, and get income,
Mhm.
from the main home that's now taking care of the ADU and your cost of living there.
Right.
Um, I think there's really very little negative to doing this, I believe. Uh,
Well,
you can check in easily on them because they're so close. Their daily routines involve going to doctors, maybe seeing the people in the community. As Brian mentioned earlier, maybe you have friends come over to your place. That doesn't have to change. It's actually better now.
Right.
So I see nothing but positives to doing it.
So you gave a speech once somewhere, or maybe it was another conversation that we had. Um, and I hope I'm not putting you on the line, but sometimes in some communities, they don't want too many additional um, dwellings on the property, and they have like county or city ordinances. But I thought you had mentioned something about the ADUs get a special sort of compensation, because I remember looking it up because my sister has this problem in Connecticut. And I remember reading something that there is some special dispensation to those laws if it's an ADU. Can you speak on that at all?
Yes. I will a little bit. I'm not an
Yeah.
attorney, but the law, in Florida, it's called a granny flat exemption.
Okay. An exemption is
Um,
the word I was looking
mhm.
for. Okay.
And if you decide to build one of these on your property, you get significant tax write-off for having it.
Okay.
There's a couple different ways in which it can happen. You do have to, in some cases, sign something with the city saying that, mom or dad will be living in it, family will be living in it, whatever the way it's written.
Hmm.
But and if something were to happen to them and they're no longer there, then you have to disclose that as well to the city or the county. You will no longer get those exemptions. But it has one of them is the cost of building it. There's some formula that you put together there to get the savings back, but it could also be just a difference of what the property valued at before
Hmm.
and after. And I just don't recall exactly how it's written now, but there's significant savings in
Okay.
having this exemption for sure.
I just thought that was important because I think a lot of people feel like my city, my county, they won't let me do it. And that might be true, but there could be an exemption that someone wouldn't think to even consider.
well,
Exactly.
let
The
me ask
state
you a
of
practical
Florida
question.
adopted this a long time ago, but they left it up to the different counties and the cities to whether they want to accept it or not. And
Sure.
that has turned into a little bit of an issue because not every city has adopted it, but my understanding, most of them have by this time.
Jane, what sort of footprint do you need to build one of these? Like,
Good
what does it
question.
look like? What's the square footage? Is it two
Like how much
story,
land do you
one
need?
story? Is it a one bedroom, one bath? What is it? And if I obviously if I live in a townhouse, I'm not going to be able to build one. Is that right?
Well, this is where it gets pretty sticky. There's a lot of regulation involved in this. Um, some cities don't even have anything in place to accept these. But I see the laws changing. The state of Florida has put out something earlier last year. It didn't get passed, but it's not off the table yet. It's not dead. And I don't think it will die. I think it's just a matter of the wording of it has to be just right and acceptable for most of these counties to accept. If it's passed by state, um, I think it will be written in a way, from what I've been able to see, that the counties and the cities will no longer be able to deny, which is excellent because that's what's happening now. Um, as far as footprint, the average size for a one bedroom is somewhere between 420 to maybe about 600 or so square feet. Um,
Does it have a
if you're,
kitchen, dining room? What's it look like?
it's a fully functioning um, home. It's just smaller, much smaller. So typically it's a kitchen and bathroom as your base, and then you have one bedroom. That's a average for a small one unit for maybe one bedroom unit for maybe one or two people at max to live in.
In Florida, that's about what some of these condos are that many people are living in. It's not
Correct.
much different.
Right. I mean, as you get older, you tend to not need as many things. So it to me it's a great option for most people. But ideally, if the city will allow you to do um, there's no rule of thumb, but most of them will allow a lot of them. I don't want to say most, a lot of them will allow 800 square feet to a 1,000 square foot. If you're
Decent.
lucky enough to get something of that size, a 2 bedroom, 2 bath is ideal because that way, if you happen to have, a visitor come or you
Mhm.
need extra help and you have a live-in person to help to assist, no one has to give up their space. Everyone's comfortable. So I think that, you want to get the most that you could, the largest that your budget will handle in this situation and what the cities will allow.
And do you have, I mean, maybe this is just the wrong question, but because I know the answer should be it depends, but rough idea of what they may cost if someone's looking into it?
Well, I mentioned that I specialize in modular, and there's a reason for that. Modular is what I found the most cost-effective way to build one of these because it's costly because you have, and let me just quickly explain what why the cost, because I get asked that question all the time. People come in thinking that it should cost a lot less because it's such a tiny space, right? And I hear them. But if you think about this being a smaller home, exact replica of your main home, everything is in it, but it's just smaller. If you think about that, that means you have all the same trades. You have
Mhm.
electrical, you have plumbing, you have HVAC, air conditioning, you have roofing trade, and all of those trades require, you know, plumbing going into this, just the same as your main home. So that's where all your cost is going to. It's going because you have the same things that's required in a much larger home, but very, very compact. So
Mhm.
getting back to your question, if it's a modular unit, it usually averages somewhere between 200 to 250,000. Um, if it's a larger, I mean, that's what it starts at. Let me say it that way. If you're building something traditional, it's going to be more because it's more of a custom build that you're doing. And you're going to take a lot longer. I can get a modular done in 6 to 8 months from start to finish. From the time we put that deposit down to you're moving in. That's pretty typical for a modular. A home, even of that size, being built from ground up is I would say 8 months to a year and a half, in some cases. And it just depends. And there's a number of reasons why that is, but the main one is if it's modular, if it's truly modular, most times it's been gone through a pre-approval process with the state or the counties or cities, and that significantly increases how fast we can get a permit. If you're doing it traditional, it's the exact same way you would put a permit in if I'm trying to build a normal traditional single family home. It's a slow process. And then on top of that, all the things that happen with traditional builds when you have workers coming in, laborers, on a daily basis, anything and everything happens. Sometimes you don't have all your workers show up. Sometimes you there may be rain delays, weather doesn't cooperate. Then you have the standard for that length of time, you got to make sure everything is secure every day. I mean, there's a lot of things that goes into building a home. If it's modular, all of that's done in a factory And when the building is shipped out, it's fully, it's not
Ready
functioning,
to
but
assemble.
everything is put together,
Ready
typically.
to assemble. Yep.
Ready, assembled, right? So I usually take another 2 months or so to do all of the site work, tying into the plumbing, electrical, so that everything works, operational. And in a sense, that's pretty much it, the process. I manage that process.
I mean, if you
So,
think about it, just, purely financially, if they went into a care community at $5,000 a month, after the third year, they're paying more than the house would cost.
well,
Exactly.
and you couple that with the fact that you're getting tax write-offs
Right,
and you've increased the value of your property.
correct.
So, it's a win-win-win all the way around the horn. So,
Mhm.
if any of our listeners or viewers are interested in exploring this option, Jane, how do they reach you directly?
So that's usually triggered by if you hear someone that's starting to talk about being worried about mom and dad, where they're going to live, or their future status. That's usually a trigger for this type of conversation to come up. Um, the easiest way to take the next steps would be to reach out via email, or the easiest way would be to actually go to aduassessment.com.
And how
That's
do you spell
AD,
assessment?
that's ADU assessment, ASSESSMENT.com.
Correct. She passed the spelling bee.
And if we want to call you, Jane, is there a number to call?
Yes, there's also a phone number if you have any questions. 954 410 9566.
One more time. 954.
954 410 9566.
Okay. And Jane, I can't thank you enough for being our guest. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, hit the like and subscribe button. Do all of your friends and family a favor and forward this to them, because I got to tell you, this ADU is a very, very hot topic, and
Mhm.
we're lucky to have the queen of ADUs nationally on here, which Jane is. And we'll be back again next week. So I thank you all. And Jane, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it very much.